I would say to people who support the New Zealand Drug Foundation that you should be incredibly proud of yourselves. Um, there was a lot of addiction in my family. One of my earliest memories is of trying to wake up one of my relatives and not being able to. I didn't understand why then, but as I got older, I realized we had addiction in my family. And people like the people in my family, everyone with addiction problems, they deserve to live and not to die. And the drug war causes the unnecessary deaths of people with addiction problems. And it causes the unnecessary deaths of drug users who aren't addicted by the distribution of contaminated drugs. And it causes the death of people along the supply routes, because when you ban drugs, they don't disappear. They're handed over to armed, violent criminals instead. So at every level, the drug war causes unnecessary deaths. From my book, Chasing the Scream, where I went all over the world to meet people who were being affected by the drug war, I saw those deaths, and I met people who'd lost someone, who'd had addicted relatives who should have lived, who had people who'd been killed on the supply routes. And most importantly, I went to the places where they moved beyond the drug war, and I saw what happens. I went to Portugal, where they had a horrendous drug crisis, and they decided to decriminalize all drugs and take the money they used to spend on screwing people's lives up, shaming them and punishing them and imprisoning them. And they spent all the money instead on turning people's lives around. And what happened? They had a massive fall in overdose deaths, and they had a massive increase in people recovering from addiction problems. And they went from having one of the worst drug crises in the world to having almost the lowest level of drug problems in the entire European Union. I went to Switzerland, where they legalized heroin for people with addiction problems and virtually ended deaths from heroin overdoses. So here's what we know. The drug war kills people. When you move beyond the drug war, you can save huge numbers of people's lives by building policies based on love, compassion, and restoring order. But here's the most important thing, and it comes down to you. The only way we get from the drug war to those sane policies is if there is a movement of people like you, ordinary citizens in a democracy, who care about these questions and become involved and campaign on them. I'm gay. I'm 42 years old. When I was 17 and I fell in love for the first time, I hadn't even heard the concept of gay marriage. It hadn't even entered my head that I might be able to marry someone I loved. Now, obviously, as you know, I can do exactly that. These things change, but they don't change just inexorably by nature. They change when people who know the right thing band together, they form a movement, they persuade their fellow citizens in a spirit of love and compassion, and they don't stop until we win. And every extra person who joins this movement for reform, for more compassionate drug policies, every person who joins brings the day when we get those reforms closer. And every day it comes closer is more lives we save. So by supporting this movement, you are taking a stand to save the lives of some of the most vulnerable people in our society and our culture. You should be really proud of yourselves. Keep fighting. Don't stop until we win.